There's a kind of loneliness that really has nothing to do with being physically alone. It's the loneliness of feeling disconnected from your own body, the loneliness of carrying things that nobody else can see. It's that loneliness of sitting across from people every day while secretly wondering if anyone truly understands what it is that you're experiencing inside. We live in a world that has never been more connected digitally, and yet so many people move through their days just feeling unseen, unheard, and profoundly alone. Maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe that's a clue. Because what if some of our greatest challenges aren't simply asking to be fixed? What if they're asking us to reconnect to ourselves, to our bodies, to the people around us? Welcome back to the Health Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Holly B, and I help women with lupus and autoimmune conditions reconnect to their bodies, reduce inflammation, reclaim their energy, and grow to the life that they're meant to live. Today, I'm joined by David Ortega. He's a holistic biomedical expert with a background in molecular biomedicine, epigenetics, holistic psychology, and clinical research. He's the founder of 𝐻𝐿istic creator of transformational therapy, and author of Cultivating a New Generation, and a host of several health and personal growth podcasts. In this conversation, David shares a powerful perspective on connection, how our relationships, our environment, our beliefs, and even our ancestral stories can shape our health and influence the way that we experience life. We explore the biology of loneliness, the healing power of community, the importance of creative, meaningful rituals, and why rebuilding trust with your body may be one of the most overlooked aspects of healing. So be sure to stay to the end because we'll be answering the question, what if the connection you've been searching for isn't outside of you at all, but begins with learning how to reconnect with yourself? Dave Ortega, welcome to the program. I'm excited to have another conversation with you.
Thank you, Holly. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited for this conversation.
Well, I enjoyed speaking with you on your podcast with your co-host, and I'm really happy to continue the conversation here. I heard you speak a few months ago about the importance of connection and friendship and community when it comes to healing. And I wore my heart earrings. If anybody's watching on YouTube, I wore my heart earrings to signify the importance of that heartfelt connection. Because in the autoimmune community, I certainly see that when people are isolated um, in their healing in their journey, trying to manage and figure out all these random symptoms with autoimmune. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. And if you don't have a community of, or at least one other person that has sort of been there and can sort of understand what you're going through, it can feel very, very isolating and disconnecting. And when you do have a community of support, it can make a world of a difference in healing. And so I'd love for you to sort of dive into what you see the importance of connection being, of friendship being when it comes to just overall health, and then we can relate that back to the autoimmune world.
Of course, yes, it's my pleasure. I think when I gave that talk and I started to do a deep research into this topic of connection and friendship, and even in this adult stage or more in this adult stage that we have listened that loneliness is really on the high, and many people is suffering about this disconnection from peers and from people their own age, of course, and all of these things are happening. We relate this and we start watching in the communities, in the blue zones, all the effects that these small communities have when they have support, when they have this, let's say, communion in sharing what they are living and in having someone to rely on. It's extremely important because it is not only in the social part, it is not only affecting your mental health, as it helps you regulate your emotions, it is also affecting your epigenetics, which is this layer that we can't see, but it's living in the environment that we are embodying. And we have these kind of changes that our DNA is being cleaned when we are in connection with others and when we feel that we are being listened, when we can share what we are experiencing in life. It also creates an armor inside of us that regulates the cortisol levels, allows the insulin to start opening the cells and lowering glucose. It helps in terms of the emotional and reward systems, giving you this regulation so that you don't have this rumination process. And we have always experienced this kind of phenomena when we have some struggle or when we have a problem, we certainly start thinking, who can we talk about it? And when we talk about the problem, when we talk about the issue with someone, it makes us feel relaxed and our heartbeat starts lowering. So that means that your HRV, so your heart rate variability, is becoming much better just by having someone to talk about your problems, to talk about the struggle, or to share positive experience, of course.
And so when you're talking about epigenetics, for those that have heard that term but maybe don't know really what it means, can you explain that a little further?
Yes, of course. Well, epigenetics is the phenomena that happens uh, in the environment of our cells, and the cells responds to this kind of environment by allowing the DNA, your code, your instructions, to be easily read when you don't have these epigenetic marks, and allowing good quality proteins or high quality proteins to be produced. When we are into in a struggle, a trauma, or a disease, we start creating these epigenetic marks, and the DNA is not being exposed so clearly. So it has certain marks that, let's say that they work as if you were throwing wine in the page of a book, and suddenly you can read that page or the whole chapter, depending on how much wine you drop, no, or coffee. So you don't understand the whole chapter, so you won't understand probably some of the key messages of that book. So that happens when these epigenetic marks don't allow certain enzymes to read the information properly. And some of the parts of the gene, some of the regions of the genes are not being read clearly. So they produce toxic or low quality proteins, and they start building up until you develop a disease.
So with epigenetics, it's sort of reliant on triggers. Is that correct? So something you might have a genetic code, a genetic predisposition for, say, autoimmune,
Mhm.
like lupus, but that has to get triggered to express. Is that right?
Yes,
And so, in creating positive human connections, positive friendships, what you're essentially saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is that creating healthy relationships has the ability to calm the nervous system, calm your heart rate variability, and allow the body to stay more in the rest and repair mode versus fight or flight. And when we're able to flow between those two states and use fight and flight when we have to, when there really is something to worry about, and then easily be flexible and get back into that rest and digest. That's where our body can repair. That's where we can clean up those coffee stains or those wine stains and make everything clean again so that we can get rid of any negative effects of those triggers.
exactly. Yes. Yes, yes. I mean, whenever we have these kind of problems, because life is full of stress and life is full of turnovers or breaking points, etc., all of these things that happen to every one of us, we uh, certainly live in a hectic society that is full of stressful moments and distractions. So many times we stay on this high stress load inside of our body. And this starts always and frequently signaling the pro-inflammatory genes and the pro-inflammatory molecules that are the language, the chemical language of the body to tell that you are in a threat, although you are not. Probably your boss just was in a bad day and it makes your life really hard. And that doesn't have to be with something threatening your life, if we are literal, no? But your body doesn't distinguish that. So it stays on this threat signal in this sympathetic mode, as you were mentioning. We don't have this time to process, and we arrive to our place. And if you have children and family, and you start having another kind of stress now, you don't have this disconnection with something that allows the body to regulate and to down regulate this uh, threat response. So you stay like that and you go to sleep, and through the night you start still having these spikes of cortisol, and your body is creating more and more epigenetic marks, because being on a threat always, of course, is going to lead your body to inflammation, and that's the mother of all diseases, no? But if you have, let's say, one space that can be exercise, another space that can be connection with other people, and you have time to process things, then your body starts getting into this parasympathetic mode, the rest and digest response, and you have now time to process things. You arrive to the night and you are more relaxed, and then your body does the job that is it has to do during sleep. No?
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, if you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to, again, indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode. And so when somebody finds themselves or identifies that they are confronting all of these stressors that the body is interpreting as a threat, even though it might just be your boss calling outside of work hours, or the kids have to get to soccer practice and softball, and then you have a dinner planned at night, but you still have to do laundry and you're tired from the day before, et cetera, right? Regular life.
Yes.
How do we start to reel back? How do we start to identify the first thing that's going to be the most effective in creating those little spaces of time where we can do the exercise, create connection. Where can we find places to take a breath?
Well, for me and for many of the clients that I coach, what I tell them is that they should start by allowing the priorities to have certain space in their own lives. So if you have blocks of time, if you have blocks of things to do, you can easily start finding some space in between activities that can give you this leverage, let's say, to adopt rituals. I call them rituals because for me it's easier that it's something that is going to be repetitive and is something that I associate with self-care, no? So I have the ritual, for example, of having 1 hour to take my breakfast and not just eat in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I'm not in a rush. Usually, no, I try to do it as much as possible and to respect that. I have the ritual of having more or less 2.5 hours to do exercise, and those blocks of time are most of the time respected. So those are my priorities. And in all of the other time that I have, I start building blocks of time to certain activities. So that's for me the easiest way to process that you really have time, but you have to find this priority, and you have to make yourself a priority. No.
I've heard it recently stated as you have to put yourself on the list.
Yeah.
Like, you have to put yourself at the top of the list. You can't
Mhm.
put everybody else on the list and all the other tasks on the list and leave yourself off of the list completely, because you are going to deplete and deplete and deplete and deplete until you're in a crisis mode. So
Mhm.
I think how we can figure out different ways of putting ourselves on that list, even if it's with small little spurts of time, like instead of, you mentioned 2.5 hours for exercise,
Mhm.
that's your block of time. Maybe for somebody it's starting with 5 to 10 minutes of
Yeah.
intentional sitting down and breathing, or a
Mhm.
10-minute yoga practice. That's how I started with my, getting physical exercise practice back into my routine, was literally just 10 minutes of yoga in the morning. When I
Yeah.
finally got that in, then I could add something else in, and that took a while. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't like, "Oh, this is what I'm doing now," and I did it perfectly. It was like starting with maybe 2 to 3 days a week, and then increased to 4 days, and then to 5 days, and I my new phrase is slow down to speed up when it comes to healing. We have
Mhm.
to intentionally slow down in order to speed up our healing process. Because if
Yeah.
we don't take that time to slow down, we're never going to get to that rest and repair mode. We're never going to allow those epigenetics markers to clean up and repair and heal. And just for our own mental stability outside of all the other health stuff, I think it's so important to stop, slow down, put yourself on the list, start with
Mhm.
something small, don't overwhelm yourself, and go from there.
Yeah. I couldn't have said that better because I think that for any client that I have, I first ask them about their day, how it starts, what are the activities, what are the main things that they want to be able to, let's say, split them in small pieces or, um let's say, accommodate into their own routines so that they can start doing something. But usually, what happens is that many people find a lot of time when they just watch their screen time. They lose so much time in the phones or in any other screen that they are not producing. And sometimes there is this misconception, and it's just a myth that you can be multitasking. I'm against that because I think that no human being can do that without affecting their own brain. No, multitasking means that you want to do 3 or 4 things at the same time, and you won't do any of them in the good quality that they deserve, and you won't finish them. So you keep building up through the days, and that's why they feel this overwhelm, because they don't feel that they can finish something if they have 5 or 6 things at the same time. But if you focus on one block of time and you process one task in that time, you will finish probably in 1 hour this uh, activity, and then you feel that reward. So it's something that also has to do with this reward system of dopamine. If you finish one task, even doing your bed, that is extremely recommended, that doing your bed in the morning is the most amazing way to start your day, and it's so simple. Well, doing your bed and finishing the task rewards you with dopamine and rewards you with confidence that you can finish the things. So once you finish these 10 minutes, as you mentioned, of yoga, then you know that you can put it in 2 days or 3 days and then start building up. And that's what I also recommend to my clients, to start from these 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and then process that, create a ritual, create this pattern of repetition throughout at least a month, and then you can build up into 3 days or 20 minutes, whatever it is that works for you. No?
And also the importance of recognizing each win, recognizing I did my 10 minutes of yoga today, or I made my bed as soon as I got up. Like, we get into routines and we forget to acknowledge that that was an accomplishment. Just because we do that every day doesn't take away the fact that it's an accomplishment. I know I can get really hard on myself if I have a task list of, 30 plus things that I want to get done in a day. Realistically, I can probably get maybe 4 or 5 done, right?
Yeah.
Just because I have many things left yet to do, I have to remind myself to take the wins of what I did do and
Exactly.
acknowledge that, and that's huge for my mental health.
Yeah.
I am a reforming multitasker. I will put that out there.
Yeah. I mean, we all are, and we all learn that way because that's what we are used to. No, many times this was a very old misconception that you could do certain things, and if you were watching TV, you could eat at the same time and talk with another person and watch your cell phone and all of these things. But that's not possible, and you are going to damage one of these tasks, no, even if they are trivial. Because I mean, and we have all experienced that when we go out with a friend and we are having this time, that probably for me it's extremely important to pay attention to what I'm doing, and I try not to get out my phone while I'm with friends. And if I see the other part doing the fun thing, well, I start losing interest as well, and I start feeling bad because I feel that I'm not being listened to and I'm not respected in my time. So all of these things have consequences, and we certainly don't process them because we don't see them, but we feel them. This disconnection leads to the multiple distractions and all the instantaneous ways that we can find. And if we don't have this time to process, to pause, to acknowledge, as you are mentioning, your tasks and acknowledge the progress, we keep on doing things and just completing tasks, but we certainly will arrive to the weekend burnout, no, and very tired and disappointed, even if you finish everything, because you didn't have time to acknowledge all of the things. And this for me relates a lot, because when I'm swimming, I like to swim. I'm counting the laps. Sometimes I count the laps in the, let's say, in the upward order. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4 laps. And sometimes I'm going from the laps that I have to complete in the reverse order. So I have to give 30 laps or 60 laps, no? So I start 60, 59, 58. So whatever works for me, but both ways works, because I acknowledge when I finish those things and I take a little break, and then I keep on with the other things, no?
And to bring it back to connection again, when you were talking about being in front of somebody, say out to lunch, you're getting together with a friend, that face to face connection,
Mm,
being able to look into somebody's eyes is so important.
yeah.
What does that do physically in the body?
Oh, it it does a lot of things. Well, first of all, I think we have all felt, and more now than ever, that when we have this sight crossing with another person, and we have this eye contact, we feel we feel good, and we smile, and that is just this blink of an eye of the drop of oxytocin, which is a hormone that starts protecting your body against these pro-inflammatory substances. So this is just the eye contact. Imagine if you arrive with someone that it's your friend that you are happy to see, and you have more connection. You hug her or hug him, and you start releasing more of this oxytocin. And then you start having this amazing talk and just decompressing, probably even doing some catharsis of your week or of your activities. And you feel that this person is paying the whole time attention to you and is watching to your eyes. So you will feel this amazing, let's say, it's a mixture, it's a cocktail of molecules that is released. It's dopamine, it's oxytocin, it's serotonin, it's all of these substances that become really powerful within your body, and all of them start creating confidence in you, trust, lowering your cortisol levels, uh, triggering the parasympathetic mode, starting to feel relaxed, starting to feel accepted. And these happens to the cellular level. So if you are feeling this as a person, as this physical body, now try to imagine your cells that are feeling the same. They are feeling that they are being accepted, they are feeling embraced, they are feeling recognized. They start doing their jobs with more enthusiasm, and they start doing their job with more connection between them. They are clean, they are happy, they are connected, no?
I love that. And so, I'm just visualizing, somebody has a hard time with maybe they don't have many close friends or family members. Can we start cultivating the same effect just in daily life interactions? For example,
Mhm.
being in the checkout line at the grocery store, you
Yeah.
don't know the checkout person, but and we're so used to being like, okay, what's next on my to-do list? I got to get home. What am I going to make with these groceries I got? I got to pick up the kid from school. We barely even acknowledge the person that's checking us out, right? So, can we take that moment to stop the other distractions and say, thank you. How was your day today? And just create a 30-second to a minute connection with somebody. And that be also as powerful with the healing effects and the triggers that sets off within the body. really quick, Holly B here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast to ask you for a quick favor. Can you take just a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening in on? It makes a world of a difference. And the reach of this podcast, it takes like literally under 10 seconds. So go do that right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode.
Yes, yes, and I love that you bring that because since the pandemic, I suffer a change of, let's say, paradigm in terms of my job. I used to have a teaching job and I had a lot of connection with the students, with other teachers, and it was more physical contact. And after the pandemic, I just turned everything into this virtual connection. So I take 2 or sometimes 3 days that I go to a coffee shop and I try to do my work there for 2 or 3 hours. And usually I try to have eye contact with people that is close to me. Sometimes I ask them about their day. Sometimes I ask them or I just say hello. And from there I start asking. If you ask the name of a person, because you are interested in creating this connection, this brings this trust in the other person because you feel interested and they tell you their name and now you call them by their name. Calling by their name is also a big connection to other people. Even if you are in a restaurant and the waiter or waitress is giving you your food, asking asking their name is something that it makes this connection happening. And every opportunity that you can have, it's also creating this muscle, social muscle, let's say, that you start creating. Because I know that for, let's say, for my culture, Mexicans, it's easy probably, no, because we are more open to these kind of connections. But I know that in other places of the world, they have these strict boundaries, but you can just open them and start interacting with people and see what happens. No, I don't think you will feel rejected. I think that everyone is nowadays in this craving of connection. So I think you will have an amazing experience if you start doing that. Yeah.
And what do you feel about when we were in the middle of the pandemic and everything reverted to online? I feel like some people had an amazing experience. Their world sort of opened up and they were all of a sudden introduced to people all over the world. And now they've got friends everywhere. Whereas other people felt so closed down and so shut down by being, kept inside and not able to go to work, not able to go have their normal social interactions. And they didn't get that connection online. Do you think that doing things like what we're doing right now, talking via Zoom, can that be both a connection creator, a heartfelt connection creator, as well as a disconnector?
Yes, it can. I mean, it has been measured that many of these cocktail of hormones that I was talking, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, and even BDNF that I didn't mention, but I will explain later, happens not in the same amount as if you were in the physical mode, but it happens. I mean, just recording this podcast and doing these interactions is something that creates this, let's say, release of hormones, no? Mainly because you are talking about something that you are passionate about and you have this connection with the other person and you start creating this thread in the conversation, this rhythm. And once you finish, you feel that you can have a different mindset in terms of your day. You feel relaxed instead of stressed. No?
Yeah, I agree. I know I felt like my world was opened up because I was all of a sudden in these different communities online and everybody was in within those communities were really into the same thing, and so we were all kind of rooting for each other and cheering for each other, and so I felt lifted up. And that's exactly why, I think having communities within, the autoimmune community or say cancer community or whatever the challenges that somebody's going through, if they can find a positive community to interact with, one that lifts people up, not one that is just there to complain about the issues, right? I think
Mhm.
it's so important in healing. um, I'm working on creating a Facebook group just specifically for that. I see a lot of groups in Facebook that are for the lupus community specifically, and other autoimmune communities that are really just there to talk about the problems and not, and I should step back. It's important to have a safe space to talk about the problems and the hardships. Absolutely. But we also can't get stuck there. We need a community that can also help lift us up and
Mhm.
through those situations, right? So I think we do have to be mindful of who it is that we're choosing to spend our time with and around.
Mhm.
Um, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording about ancestral healing and kind of the healing of different generations and lineage. Could you dive into that a little bit more?
Yes, yes, of course. Well, I this is something that has happened throughout time, and probably nowadays we have more, let's say, awareness of this kind of phenomena, that we are connected through other generations all the time, and many times our patterns, many of the diseases that we are experiencing, even the patterns of the people that we choose in terms of our relationship start repeating, you know. So if we understand the life of our ancestors, and this starts with our parents and how they were when they were a child, and how their own parents treated them, and what was the experience that they lived, we start creating more compassion for what they experience, and we start understanding why we were also having those issues, let's say, when we were children. And if we go even one generation before, we understand even more things that were happening, and more patterns that we are now seeing and being aware and being conscious, and we can understand. And that's why I love science, and the mixture of science and spirituality that I have with the my co-host in this podcast that you were on also, because I love how nowadays both realms are merging. So spirituality, meaning these mystical phenomena of past lives and past ancestors that were experiencing certain times and certain struggles and trauma, and how they can connect through us within this coding of the DNA, within these epigenetic marks, and how we have to clean them by becoming aware of them, by becoming mindful that we all have this baggage, and we came here and we chose those parents because we had to heal those things for future generations.
Yeah, healing for future generations. I think if we can put ourselves on that timeline
Hmm.
and also, well, putting ourselves on that timeline and being able to look to the past, but not sticking there, also being able to look to the future and what our shifts and our changes can create for the next generation
Hmm.
is a beautiful thing. Even if, like, I don't have children, I'm not going to have children, but I have nieces, I have nephews, I have friends with kids. So what I'm doing is not just based on my children because I'm not going to have them. it still has that ripple effect to the people that are in my life and those future generations.
Mhm.
And I think, if we can just widen our perspective in that sense,
Mhm.
healing yourself becomes that much more important
Mhm.
and critical. If you're looking at the world today and you're not happy with what you're seeing and you want to create a positive shift, you have to start with yourself. You
Yeah.
have to start with yourself. You can't, in my belief, you can't make a huge impact in the world today unless you are starting on your own stuff. You got to start with your own stuff.
Yes, exactly. And we are this web of connections. We are this collective. And as you are mentioning, even if we don't have children, we can impact the other people around us by healing, by example, by showing them that we can, let's say, become healed from a disease that has been labeled and has been prescribed and has been also, let's say, mm, become a destination or like I forgot the word, but just as a, let's say, as a sentence, no? Instead of seeing things as a sentence, as something that you have to live throughout your life and you can't do anything, you can start doing these small changes in our lives by adopting these rituals, creating these small connections in everyday life. And by doing that, we are changing in small pieces and we are cleaning these marks of our DNA and cleaning them in the collective as well. Because as you mentioned, if we become healed or and we understand more about our stories by doing this deep dive in our past and understanding not just becoming the victim of things, but creating this ripple effect of change, then we are going to have this energy in the field, let's say, that we are together, no? Even from afar, even from these virtual connections. And there is one researcher that made this, that created and wrote about it, is McTaggart, her last name, and she published a book where she speaks about this healing throughout virtual connections, and she performs this healing effect through virtual communities. And nowadays, she focus on that mindset and on of that change of perception. And she was explaining in her book that she even lower the rate of crime in certain cities by creating these meditation programs focus on reducing the crime effect. No?
I absolutely love hearing about that.
Mhm.
We hear about the power of prayer,
Mhm.
and the power of meditation, the power of the focused mindset.
Yeah.
How do you use that with your clients in their healing journeys?
I use it a lot because I think it all starts in the mind and it all starts in this visualization process that you are performing. Whatever you have to change, whatever you have to start manifesting in your life, it has to start with a dream, with a vision. And I always have done this without knowing, because when I was in my teenage years, I had a song that I used to play this song, and the words of the song allowed me to enter into the space of visualizing whatever I wanted to do, pass an exam or meet a new girl or whatever it is, no? And things happen. And things happen because you have direction. And this is another thing that I'm going to record in this weekend, because I want to do an episode in my own podcast about this direction in life. I think what happens many times, and nowadays more, is that people don't have direction, and more these younger generations, they feel confused. There is too much information, too much things, too much threats, and they become overwhelmed. So they lose direction, and they don't know what is better for them. They don't start discovering their own skills, their own passion, and they are just going through life without meaning, without purpose, without anything. So it's easy to start adopting bad habits with this kind of way of being. But when you have this direction, you can create a visualization process and a meditation process, and repeating that every day, it's going to create that reality. You
And to relate that scenario to someone who's struggling with their autoimmune condition, it is likely that they've been searching all the search engines, all the Instagrams, all the YouTubes, and become overwhelmed with the
Mhm.
amount of conflicting advice and information out there on what they should do next, right? You've got
Mhm.
your medical team's perspective, you got the holistic world, you've got a million people in between that have something to gain, most likely by giving you their opinion on how you should heal and how you can or can't heal. And I think what you're talking about is super important to creating that vision. First, we have to put ourselves on the list, right? To get back to what we were talking about earlier, you have to put yourself on the list and you have to make some time to create that vision of what healing looks like for you
Mhm.
and get quiet. And if you can create meditation or a practice around that, you can start to tune in better to your intuition, which can help guide your next step and help you just have more discernment in, does this path sound right for me? Or does this path sound right for me? And it can help direct you where to go and just help connect you with that gut instinct that
Mhm.
is so easy to ignore or not even hear because we're so overwhelmed with the amount of conflicting information out there.
Yes. And you mentioned something that I think it's worth going deeper a little bit about the connection with the body. That is, I think, one of the most important things that we have lost, connection with our own bodies, and starting to feel the reactions that our bodies has. Because when our cells and the heart and all of the organs start creating this sensory mechanism, the information that they receive, it's seconds sometimes before it arrives to the brain, to the thought mind. So whenever you create this connection with your body, that you can, let's say, guide and allow your intuition to speak, then you will have much better choices. You won't feel disappointed by the outcomes that probably didn't happen in the way you visualize them, but you will accept that was not your path, or it was not the moment for that to happen. So you don't create this, let's say, uh, victim mindset, that things don't happen to you or you can't do these kind of things, and you release those self-limiting thoughts and start creating a different perception of things when you align yourself with your body, and when you listen more to these cues that we all have, and we constantly can become more attuned to them. No.
And, and speaking also on that deeper level of communication and connection within the body, what practices are we doing in our life that are creating more distraction from that communication, and what practices are creating more communication just even on that cellular level. So that's things like, you know, are we choosing to continue eating foods that are inflammatory for us? Are we staying up too late at night and throwing off our circadian rhythm? Are we getting sun exposure on our skin and through our eyes every day? Are we staying indoors under fluorescent lighting and blue lights and staring at screens? All of those things can help or hurt the
Mhm.
the actual physical cellular mitochondrial communication within the body. And if those become inflamed and that communication system gets um, distracted or disoriented or stops altogether, that's when we start to see things like autoimmune conditions, which, in my opinion, it's a lack of communication within the body. So, how can we restore that? You know, by changing some of our practices and by getting quiet, taking that time to intentionally tune in and intentionally visualize and intentionally pray or meditate on that vision of healing and on that vision of creating that communication system within the body. That's when we can tune into that gut instinct and the discernment that everyone has, but we can easily lose touch with.
I think that the first step is to become in love again with your body.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I I I really love the this connection that I have created since I was a teenage boy, because I had a lot of overweight and I was bullied when I was in my high school years. And my cousin took me under her wing and allowed me to start knowing more about exercise and taking me to aerobic classes in the 80s. And I started doing that and seeing the changes in my body, and I become in love again with my body because I rejected my body when I was overweight and I didn't accept myself. But when I processed that and I started seeing the changes and how my body responded, I never let go. And I always felt that connection with my body, and I always respect. That's why for me, the most important time of the day is being on the exercise time, on the block of time where I do exercise, because my body really becomes alive again and it starts feeling this flow of uh, hormones and neurotransmitters and all of the things that happen. And sometimes people don't understand that, or don't create this connection because they don't understand what their body is doing. But when you understand what the body is doing for you appreciate more, no? Because it's just illogical for me to appreciate more a phone or a car that does a lot of things for you, and you cherish the phone and cherish the car a lot, and you take care of it every day, but you don't take care of your body. Probably because no one has ever explained to you what the body is doing for you.
Oh, and that makes me think of with autoimmune, oh, we can there can be kind of a break in that connection with our bodies because we have become fearful of them. We're fearful of that next symptom. We're fearful of what's going on. It's doing all kinds of erratic things that we can't logically understand or figure out. And so we can create that disconnection from the body and we can get stuck up here and forget to really intentionally connect with the body.
Mhm.
The other thing that makes me think of too is that we if we can reframe like what you're just saying, if we can reframe like I'm going through all of this crap with my autoimmune condition, and yet I am still breathing. I am still alive. There are still functions that my body is doing to keep me here and present. Start focusing on the things that are going right. You
Yes.
know, I think that can be like opening the door to all of these other things of we might not be in a space where I can fall back in love with my body if it's, you know, feels like it's completely abandoned me, right? And it's just out in the wind doing whatever it wants to do. And I feel like I have no control. I might not be able to just open the door and be like, I'm in love with my body. It's so amazing. What we can do is open the door, just crack it and say, well, I was able to still do this today. I was able to digest my lunch today. I was able to sit calmly and breathe. I was able to, fill in the blank and really recognize that that is your body working for you, not against you.
Mhm.
And from there, we can slowly, create a larger practice around that.
Yes, yes. I can't relate to the pain of a person with autoimmune disease, of course, because I haven't suffered for that, but I have suffered of other diseases. And whenever I am in this disease state, I that's what I try to do, what you mentioned, trying to see what I could do instead of all the things that I can't, because that's like when you finish a task, no? Celebrating and acknowledging that you finish one task in a pile of 50 or 30, it's it creates momentum and it creates recognition, and your body needs that when it is in that state. And your body also needs understanding. I think that autoimmune and this disconnection happens because sometimes you haven't been able to relate to your body to the level of understanding what happened. And it might not even happen in your lifetime, as I was mentioning, but it happened in another uh, timeline with your ancestral lineage. But understanding this lineage, understanding what happened, and acknowledging that starts creating compassion for your body and starts creating this um, connection again, no? Feeling that you have to recognize that there are some cells that need to be cleaned, which are these disconnected cells. And you need more of the connection of clean and new cells that you can always create in order to process and to start helping your recovery, no? Mm.
I love the way this conversation has flowed around the importance of connection, both interpersonal connection and within our own selves, within our own spirit, and within our own body, and even just to the cellular level. Is there anything that we didn't touch on today that you want to mention to our listeners, or any last thoughts to leave them with?
Well, the last thoughts that I would like to leave them with is uh, try to understand your journey in all the levels that you can, with your own life, with your patterns, and if you can go into one or two generations below or in the past, so that you can understand where these pinpoints of pain happen, of trauma, and how you can, let's say, unravel them and start being more clear in what happened. And by doing that, I'm sure that your healing process is going to speed up really fast, because when you have compassion for your body and when you start loving it again, even for the small things, let's say, that it does, uh, you will start the healing process quickly.
David, thank you so much for such a great conversation. Where can everybody find you?
Well, my website is easy. It's my name, it's www, and it's davidortegab.com. So people can find everything there. Recently, I am launching a mastermind training for people in Spanish that I'm going now to launch in English for all the community that is abroad. And it's monthly classes that I try to touch on the 5 pillars of health that my coaching program is about. And I try to help people to understand these different pillars so that they can build up throughout a year.
And what are those 5 pillars?
It's nutrition. Then that the second pillar is exercise and metabolism. The third pillar is emotional resilience. The fourth one is consciousness and meditation. And the fifth one is financial abundance.
I love that. Sounds so powerful. Everyone, definitely check that out. And I will leave links in the show notes to your podcast as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Holly. It was a pleasure, and I loved the way the conversation flowed.
Thank you so much to David Ortega for sharing his wisdom with us today. One of the themes that stayed with me throughout this conversation is that connection isn't just something that's nice to have, it's something that we deeply need on a cellular level. So, whether that's connection through community, our family, our purpose, or our own bodies, healing becomes much harder when we try to do it alone. If you're navigating lupus or another autoimmune condition, I hope that this episode reminded you that you're not broken and you're certainly not alone. Even when healing feels super overwhelming, there are always opportunities to rebuild trust, create connection, and take one small step forward. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram at health_bridge_coaching. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it, or apply for a free healing breakthrough session with me if you are ready to find some connection and some guidance in your healing journey. As you move through the rest of your day, I want to leave you with one question. Where in your life are you being invited to reconnect? Until next time, keep building your bridge back to health.